Welcome to the Appleton Historical Society, Thursday night at the museum. Coach's Corner, coaches of girls, 4 coaches of girls basketball teams. We have quality as opposed to quantity, but that's fine. I'm sure we're going to have an engaging, informative, and interactive program this evening. Greg Hartjes, Superintendent of Appleton Area School District, former coach of Appleton West boys basketball team, has graciously consented to serve as moderator.
I'll give a little intro about myself. So some of you heard this last week when you were here for the boys event. So I coached basketball at Appleton West. I was the varsity assistant for 2 years, from 93 to 95, and then I coached the varsity boys for 8 years from 95 to 2003. And since that time, I have coached youth basketball for my kids. I started the Appleton West Youth Basketball Club, and then I stayed involved with that through like 2018. And once my oldest went off to college, I was done coaching, and so I now haven't coached basketball in about 7 years, and so I'm happy to be talking basketball again tonight. And so what we'll do is we'll just kind of go down. We'll start here with Coach Paton. Introduce yourself, your school, and the coaching that you did, not just the varsity experience with girls coach, but what other coaching had you done for basketball. So go ahead.
No jokes.
I think you can tell us.
Not yet.
Hi, I'm Greg Paton. I was coach at Appleton East for 15 years. And before that, I was coaching Brilliant High School for 5 years, all girls. Okay, so matter of fact, the first time we went to state was with Brilliant, and I met you at state.
Really?
Yeah, when we stayed at the Sheraton, when they WIA used to put us up and feed us
sure.
and everything.
Yeah.
I remember running into you there. Yeah, but yeah, so 20 years total.
Yeah. Mary Beth Nienhaus, coached at Appleton West for 15 years.
Joe LaChapelle, I coached at Appleton East and currently coach at Appleton East on the boys' side as an assistant. But before that, coached AAU for about 8 years, and then I was 12 with the girls and 3 now as an assistant with the boys. So yeah, I don't look that old, but yeah.
Tiffany Huck, I was coach at Appleton West for 5 years, from 2005 to 2010. Yeah.
And I'm Steve Gargo. I just want to say, Mary Beth and I don't know, perhaps you too, Greg, we got to start coaching girls basketball when Title IX came through. Because I started in Illinois and coached for 5 years there. When I came to Appleton, I applied for a job to be a track coach at East, and after the interview, Emmett Hawks at West called me and said, we want you because you're a basketball coach, and I hadn't coached girls basketball in about 10 years after that. But anyway, I was the person who preceded Greg as Gene Woodley's assistant, and then when I took the girls' job at the last minute because of some emergency with the head coach at the time, then you took over as the assistant, and I took over for 3 years as the varsity coach.
So that's a great segue. Actually, we're going to go to Mary Beth here and have her tell us a little bit about the history of girls basketball.
Yeah. So that wasn't quite on the agenda tonight. But those of you that know me. But, and this is the Appleton Historical Society, so I mean, clearly we should be talking about the history of girls basketball. And so I'm going to quiz some of you today. Do you know when basketball was invented? Carol knows.
How close do we have to be?
Just give a number.
1880.
It's close. It's actually 91. 91. Yeah. So it was by whom? Who invented basketball? It was James Naismith.
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, I was curious to know when the girls' basketball came into being, and that was like a year later. And I looked at this, and it's Senda Berenson, whoever that may be. She adopted the James Naismith basketball rules for women at Smith College. And this was interesting, emphasizing gentle play and limited physical contact. So if she would see us play today,
Yeah.
especially at the WNBA. So anyway, some of you are probably, wondering how old I am. And, but preface this by simply saying that I've been around the block, and I was there for Title IX. Steve knows about that, and maybe some of you are familiar with that a little bit. But my first experience with basketball, I attended parochial schools, so I didn't even have a physical education class. But in 1957-ish or so, the Appleton Rec Department had basketball. So I competed in that. I don't know if I would even say competed, because we played 6-player. Does anybody remember 6-player? A little bit. In fact, when I was talking to Greg just before, he said that he played 6-player, in a physical education class.
Yep.
But anyway, so 6-player was quite interesting. We had a center line, we had 3 guards, we had 3 forwards, and it was a very frustrating game because we could pass the ball in to the court. We could not go over that center line, as I mentioned, but we had to have 2 passes before we could actually attempt a shot, and we could only have 2 dribbles. So I remember being not happy with that, and I fouled out, I think, of a lot of games.
But didn't Iowa do that for a long time?
Yes, in fact, we even talked about that too. So Iowa, and this is an interesting perspective because they played 6-player for many, many years. They had more spectators at the girls' games than they did at the boys. Mm-hmm. And eventually, the girls that were competing in 6-player, that they actually had a lawsuit with the state because other schools had played 5-player, so they were limited and one-dimensional. So they weren't, getting some of the scholarships and everything. So then they switched over into 5-player. But so my experience with 6-player goes into the late 60s. So you can probably tell how old I am as I'm repeating some of this. But from 65 to 69, I actually taught at Kaukauna High School. And at that time we had GAA. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Girls Athletic Association. And we did have basketball there. And it was 6-player. And at that time, they introduced rovers. So they thought that there must be at least 2 people on the team that were somewhat physically fit, that they could actually run up and down the court. And I think maybe they were worried about, our periods and if we were physically fit. I don't know. Pam, did you play that?
Yeah, I played that at West.
Yeah.
The 6 was
So did we play rovers at that time?
Yep.
Because Pam is my former player and coach. You did, so I can't remember exactly when that all was.
My sophomore year, so that would have been 71. We were
Yeah.
doing 6 people with 2 rollers.
Okay. Well, I thought it was maybe sooner than that. But anyway, when I was at Kaukauna, we had play days. So that something meant that we would have like maybe 15 kids from Kaukauna come over to Appleton West. A lot of schools were involved. We did not play as a team, but we just mixed ourselves up and with other kids and everything. But then we played sports days. Sports days, we have an identity. We could keep our team and everything. So I remember when I was at Kaukauna, we had 2 full-length gyms. And so I had a sports day. I think I had like 8 teams over there, played through the whole day. And it was 6-player and it was rovers. So no uniforms. I remember that we had our gym suits and we would take tape and put the numbers on our backs. We could not have any publicity at all. We couldn't have any spectators. We couldn't have any trophies. But I remember our kids had like tin cans and they decorated them and, so anyway, that's how we began that. So that was 6-player and a rover. We, and like you said, I thought 71, you said we still had 6-player. Well, then right after that, we went into 5-player. Yeah. And that was also, and I wanted to share this with you too, so I think we still had that big basketball. Mm-hmm. So the smaller ball didn't come into play until a little later. But in 1971, I actually went on for my master's degree over at Illinois State, came back and got lucky enough to get a position over at Appleton West in 71. And then we did play 5-player, and it was fine. I think we played maybe 7 games, I recall, with some of the teams, in our conference and everything. We did have uniforms at that time, but I remember, and maybe Beanie remembers this, so this uniform was for volleyball, basketball, and track. Same uniform for 3 sports. Remember those orange? Anyway. So then the most exciting thing happened, and we talked about Title IX and everything. So in 1972, Title IX came into play. And it was interesting because I was attending a basketball and volleyball clinic at River Falls, and I had an instructor there, Coach Millie Barnes. She was a college coach from Missouri, and she just happened to be on the Title IX committee. So she shared with us about Title IX, and I was so excited. So I could hardly wait to get back to Appleton West. And I think Paul Egan might have been the athletic director. I should have asked him to make sure that he came today so I could sing him. And then our principal was Emmett Hawks. So once they knew that I knew about Title IX, things changed a little bit. So our games, when we played, with the girls' schedule was Tuesday and Thursday nights. Okay. So our practice sessions were like on a Monday night. We had the gym from like 7 to 9 o'clock, and then of course we played on Tuesday. So our schedule was not wonderful. I think maybe you, when you started to coach with me, I don't know if you went over to Lincoln.
We did. The
yes.
JV team went over to Lincoln.
Yes. So Lincoln Elementary School, we had 2 regulation buckets on the ends, and the other ones were lower. So that wasn't quite an ideal situation. But our girls team, JV team, had to go over there. Well, Title IX came about. Dick Emanuel was the coach. I think in 1970 he won the state tournament, so he was like, pretty prominent there. And I was just a little peon. But somehow we negotiated with Title IX, and we ended up having better practice sessions and everything too. And I think then we had our own uniforms and everything too. So there must have been more money that was put into the budget. So now I actually, believe it or not, was just talking to somebody today, and they even made a comment. They said right now, and maybe you can address this a little bit, but it seems like women and girls have been neglected a little bit in some of the things that they now have in some of the high schools too. So we can talk about that a little bit later. The last thing I want to sort of share with you is that, and this is sort of a highlight for me, and when the WIAA came into play, and they were pretty conservative as when they wanted to do the state tournaments. So I think in the late 60s, they started out with track and field for girls. They then had the girls' state tournament. We actually, Appleton West, hosted the first and second tournaments there. And then, believe it or not, first team event, I think, was basketball. It was in 1975-76. And so I have to share this a little bit and brag a little bit with this, because we had some interesting games going into the tournament, but we ended up qualifying for the state tournament. So we were one of the first Division I teams to go into state. I can probably tell you just about everything that happened that first game, but I'll just sort of share with you that we played the first game because they had us in alphabetical order. And so we competed against DC Everett's. We actually ended up winning. Chris Gerhold, who I was hoping would come here tonight, but she scored the first bucket. So we sort of, made history. And very honestly, I forgot all about that, but when we were at the sports banquet, Mr. Hawks mentioned that. I went, oh yeah, we must have made history with that. All right, that's my story. Sticking to it.
All right, thank you, Mary Beth.
Awesome.
So
That's great.
we'll start here and have you kind of go off of this and talk about 1 or 2 or 3 of your favorite memories from coaching girls basketball.
Okay. I think my first year coaching girls was 81-82 season. So that was the Brilliant Girls program. I think was only about 5 or 6 years old at about that time, and weren't drawing many kids. So me and a buddy of mine took over the program, and we had loads of girls coming in. And you talk about the old rules to be kind, don't touch, stuff like that. I literally had to teach the girls that they could touch each other and how to use their hips, which one of my assistants referred to as the use your weapon.
That's interesting.
Yes. And I think our JV team, we didn't have a freshman team, we had a JV and a varsity team. The JV team had 20 girls on it, and we weren't allowing cuts. Yeah, so that's and really good memories. Our last girl on the JV team was just out there to have fun, and she'd get into a game and just be giggling the whole time. And then whoever's coaching JV at the time, I did for a while, and then Al did, would make sure we got all 20 girls in. Yeah. And in terms of the early times of coaching, those are good memories. And I already mentioned one that we went to state, I think, in '84. And that's where I ran into Mary Beth at the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Mary Beth, any other
I'm gonna
one or
just
two memories, or you want to
segue right
go
over
to
here to
Joe?
Joel.
Okay.
Well, so many memories. I think the overriding theme for me was the relationships that get built in that. Just getting to meet people I never would otherwise have met. You, right? Just kind of knowing that kind of stuff. I think there's so many, I guess, of those stories that we can all share from coaching. And then when you think of what goes into coaching and the time commitment and the sacrifice and all that stuff, that I think that's what shows you how special those moments are, because you're willing to put in all of this work and all the effort, put up with all the stuff that goes outside of the basketball for those moments. But I would say if it's like, okay, give me a basketball related moment, it was when we were at the Resch Center, and we hadn't been to state since you went. So it had been 20 some years, and coming out in that community, ooh, that was cool. Yeah. So that was, it was almost emotional, but you got to see, and we packed that place. It was, it was over half Appleton East, and just seeing some of the people, they had their old, East Letterman's jacket on that they pulled out of storage. You know what I mean? It was unbelievable, and so to get to have those kids experience that, I think that was pretty special.
Yeah, kind of. I didn't bring it. None of our teams made it to the state tournament, but in 2009, in terms of thinking about what moment on the floor, our team won the conference in 2009, and I remember we won it. The game that we won to kind of solidify it was at home, and being able to kind of sit on the bench and just watch the girls celebrate that moment was really cool, because they worked hard. I mean, without a doubt, and they put so much time in. And, every group I had was a ton of fun. I've always said, my favorite part of coaching was practices, just going to work with the girls, because I don't know, we just had a great time together, and they were just a really cohesive group. And at West, the staff, I taught at Highlands, so every day after school I'd be fighting Highlands, Lincoln, and West traffic to get to practice in time. And so I had great support from Becky Frank, as my assistant coach at the time too. But it was just to step back and watch them feel that success was fantastic. But I think personally, my favorite part of coaching was just going to practice each day. Girls are just a ton of fun to coach.
Yeah,
I miss that. I miss that part a lot. That part I miss it.
I'm just going back to the excitement it was to have the very first team at the high school where I had gotten a job, for those girls team, and so many of those excited young ladies showed up for the team, and we had to do tryouts, and we had to cut them to just 15 is all they could afford to have uniforms for. So we're down to that 15, and as Greg or Mary Beth were alluding to, we had to show them how to do all kinds of things with contact, but the best part was the scoring. I remember so many of those first games, the winning score was 10-6. I remember those days. But ultimately, one of my first teams in Illinois was really, really good. We were 2 deep at each position, and we were on a roll, just about beat Kimberly. And then when it was time for the regionals, we were able to win that regional, and we were going up against Shawano for the trip to state, and they were undefeated. And I gotta be a coach and say, the refs fouled out my number 1 center, then the refs fouled out my number 2 center, and I didn't bring up the sophomore center, Juliette Brown. So we didn't have a center, and their girl just went crazy, and we were winning the whole game till the last girl fouled out with 4 minutes to go, and then we lost the shot.
So we'll start that way and we'll come back this direction and talk about maybe 1 or 2 challenges from coaching. What do you recall as far as challenges? Some of you have talked about it, right? Having girls basketball be so new when some of you are coaching. It's interesting that none of this came up with the boys last week. You know, boys, just a lot different conversation. But this is very interesting that some of you are pioneers, obviously, in coaching girls basketball. But Steve, you want to continue on with any challenges you can think of?
Well, now, I didn't allude to it before, but you know, I was coaching in Illinois, and then I was out of coaching because I changed high schools, and so there was a 5-year gap between coaching basketball and then coming to Appleton and being Gene Woodley's boys assistant for a couple of 3 years. And then I became the girls coach, like I said, at the last minute. And the one thing that I didn't realize in that time span is my Illinois experience, basketball wasn't a 12-month-a-year game as it is then. I remember the first team that I inherited was so good and almost made it to state. And they said, "Where are we going to camp?" And my Illinois experience, camp? What, you know? What camp? You don't need to go to camp. And from that was probably the biggest thing, is now to see that, no, everybody has to play 12 months a year to be able to be competitive.
Yeah, for me, I think part of it again was just not being at the school. But again, I also feel like it served me a little bit well because my assistant coach was there, and I feel like the girls connected well with her, and they could go to her, you know, and see her. So just getting back and forth to and from that was a little difficult. The other thing I think that was a challenge for me was I went from playing to coaching, like over the course of 2 or 3 months, whatever it was between seasons. And as a player, I never would like show frustration toward the officials. And as a coach, I had no intention of doing that either, because that's just not who I was. I just would let the play happen. The call would be made. I wouldn't like it, but I would just move on. And I had some girls come to me and they're like, "Coach, if you don't kind of like let them know you're not happy, like we don't really feel like you have our backs." And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So for me to kind of step a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I was never going to get in any real trouble with an official, but to let them know I didn't agree with a call was something that I had to learn to do a little bit carefully and cautiously, because that's the way I am. But that made a lot of sense to me, that those girls needed to know that I had their back, you know, out on the court. So for me, just to make that switch was different.
Yeah, it's cool that they felt comfortable enough to say that too.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good relationship thing.
Good kids.
Just, I guess this is more of like a big picture thing as far as challenges, because I think we all face the same stuff, time, you know, yada yada. But I think the biggest challenge, or I guess focus for me, was you wanted to make it a great experience for every kid. So and we never cut, so we had 22 kids one year, and we had 18, whatever. So how do you make them understand that they're valuable and all this stuff? And that was we'll say challenge, but when you do it the right way, it's just kind of natural in the culture of the program. But I think that's the thing, is making sure that we're good enough as coaches to make sure they get a great experience. That was probably the biggest focus there.
Well, this is an interesting question. So I think the biggest challenge for me was to better myself as a coach. And I became a coach, basketball coach and a volleyball coach and a track and field coach, because that's exactly what physical education teachers would do way back then. So some of you know that I'm a golfer. So I had a lot of my friends that were coaching in other schools. They were AAU basketball, teams, and I had all that experience and everything. So I was really, like learning on the run. So I attended tons of clinics. Dick Bennett, remember Dick Bennett? Yeah, so he was really into defense. I actually did some of his clinics, and this is interesting. It was a weekend clinic. On Friday night we did defense. On Saturday we did defense, and on Sunday morning we did offense.
Oh, okay.
So I just, and then Dick Emanuel was really interesting, because he wasn't too happy about Tunnel 9. And so with Jim Space and everything, we really came to be very, very good friends. And so I would go into his office. and we would do X's and O's,
Oh.
and I would talk about, the people that, the coaches and the teams that we were playing against, and so he would give me advice and everything, and he would attend every single game.
Ah.
So, and I asked him if I could, observe his practices and everything, so I felt like, he was really a big boost to my coaching and everything, because, the kids, you wanted them to excel and to, get better. So I felt like I had that challenge to make sure that I would do that too. And I will share one little story off the cuff again. But remember when Dickie Manuel won the state tournament? Does anybody remember the last play that he had? Huh?
Yeah, Hanson made it.
Yeah, Hanson made the baseline shot and everything. So, of course, Dick shared that play with me, and he would always sit up in the science gym on the far side. My parents were right up there with him, chit-chatting away. So that was, I don't know if it was like 6-7 seconds or so left to go in that state tournament game. Well, believe it or not, I can't remember who we were playing, but we were down by 1 point. I called timeout. We had 6 seconds left. And I told the kids, I said, we're going to do this play, I said, that Emmanuel had to win the state tournament. And of course, I had Lisa Johnner on the team. That was probably the best player ever. So everybody knew she was going to get the ball. So it was like a double screen. So she went over here and came over there. And ball's in the air, the clock, anyway, so we win the game. So right away I looked up at Dickie Manning and went, yes.
It worked again.
That's cool.
Okay, I'm going to go back to something Tiffany said about practices. And it wasn't one of the challenges, because in 20 years of teaching basketball, I looked forward to every single practice and enjoyed every single practice. I mean, I absolutely love teaching basketball. The primary challenge, the serious primary challenge, was ACL injuries.
Wow.
I think maybe I had 1 or 2 years all the times I coached where I didn't have girls who blow out their ACLs.
Wow.
My last year I coached, I had 2 very talented posts, and was looking forward. I tweaked my offense during the summer, and season started. Both my starting posts were out with ACL injuries. My point guard was out with a shoulder injury. My third post, good passer, had a knee that subluxed and missed half the season. And I had one starter who was coming back from her second ACL injury.
Good grief.
Yes, it was a tough year. It was a year I really got into performance psychology, and I really applied that through the whole year. Yeah, that was the toughest year, but it still was fun to coach. Still was fun going to practice, all that. And the not so serious challenge is connecting with ex-players, because I have no idea what their last names are.
Yeah, they got married or something, and they got married, and now
really?
I don't know how to get a hold of them.
Well, even they don't even know when you do run into them. I don't know where they are.
All right, how about the next question? And I'm going to start with Joe, and then we'll work our way that way. I want to talk about the differences between when you got into coaching and what basketball's like now. So you can talk about X's and O's, you can talk about 12-month season for kids, how hard kids work today compared to what they used to. Like Steve said, used to be kids could show up on the first day for tryouts, and when the basketball season ended, that's not the case anymore. So you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk to the other 4.
Yeah. Well, I think from when I started to now, actually, I think the girls' numbers are dipping quite a bit. I think I don't want to say on camera, but club volleyball has really impacted the participation in girls basketball. Club volleyball going while the basketball season is going is tough. And so I think what we did at East was we just worked with those players, and if you wanted to play club volleyball, we'll figure something out. And so I told one player, I'd rather have you for 18 games than 0, instead, I know you're not going to make some of these because you're gone on the weekend, but that was probably like the biggest change from the beginning to the end. And then the time commitment. But also I would probably say the parents' drive for their kids to be something versus the kids' drive to be what they want to be. It's different. I think there's just too much involvement sometimes.
Okay, so I coached almost 15 to 20 years ago, and I think club volleyball was just kind of getting its start around then. And I kind of said, like, you can do both, but during basketball season, basketball is a priority. And I would say even like you think AAU basketball is a spring deal, and I think it should take a backseat to if you do a spring sport, right, for your school, because I feel like that's committing to that. But I also realize, there's cost involved, families are paying money for kids to do those things. So it's a tough thing to navigate that way. And I didn't have a lot of overlap, but I realized that. And I think I look at now, I think about summertime. I think when I was coaching, you got 5 contact days, I believe. So 5 days of summer. So our kids would always go to a camp. This was a tradition at West Girls. I don't know how long it went back, but they would go to a camp at Lakeland. I can't remember what it's called. And they had a great time, and they would do that, and we'd use a couple contact days for that. But you had those 5 days, and that was it. And now I look at it, and I'd love to know how coaches manage all of this, because I feel like it's limitless. And you could ask them to do a lot of things, and then you've got kids that want to play multiple sports. How do they manage all of that? So I don't know. I've got a friend who's a head coach up in the Green Bay area. I haven't talked to her a lot about it, but I do always wonder, how do you do it? What do you ask them? What are you requiring of them versus, and also it's summer, like you want them to be kids and enjoy time away from all the routine of the school year things too. So I don't even know. Truthfully, I don't know how it's done these days, but I think there's good in that the coaches can help them a lot, but what does that mean on the coach's end? I'm not sure. Maybe you can speak to that.
I'd love to, because I think that it's really on the coaches to collaborate and to understand that you're sharing athletes. Yeah. And then we talk about all the time about having multi-sport athletes, and then you get coaches who are trying to just, okay, I'll talk multi-sport, but I want you here at everything and forget everything else. So what we did was, so certain nights of the week so Tuesday night was volleyball night. Okay. So if we had a basketball thing, but you had volleyball league, you went to volleyball, no questions asked. I think you communicate, if mom wants to go on vacation with the family, you are going on vacation with the family, no questions asked. And I think on the girls, like we'd get together every year and coordinate that summer schedule. I think it was just really important to collaborate, and that's, who knows? You'd have to ask the parents if we did great, but I felt like we did. We tried anyway. Yeah.
Well, early communication too is helpful. Just so parents can kind of plan around that. So. Yeah, true.
My thing had to do with game night. When I took the job, and like I said it a couple times now, it was the last minute. I think it was 2 days before their first game was when I got appointed to be the varsity girls coach, and. Part of the reason I went to it was because, I coached girls 10 years earlier in Illinois, but also they were playing on Tuesday and Thursday, and I thought, perfect, then I'm going to be with my young family, and that'll work out a little bit better than all the Friday, Saturday, and we were also playing Tuesdays on the boys at that time as well. And so what happened is that they changed the schedule, and their first attempt at the schedule was to have, when the girls were home, the boys were away. Yeah. And that was not working, because there's nobody at the girls' game, and everybody goes to the boys' game. And that killed the people that I was coaching, because those poor ladies wanted to have the basketball team there watching them play, but they were on the other side of the state playing somebody else. So I went to Paul Engen and I said, Paul, this isn't working, and here's a suggestion. I did some research. In Texas and in California, ladies basketball is the first game, varsity, and men's basketball is the second game, varsity. And the crowds are huge because they're coming, if it's a good boys team and a not so good girls team, then they're there at least for both teams, and vice versa. And there's a lot of places where the boys teams aren't very strong at all, but the girls team's so strong, they're drawing in the crowd. Well, of course, it was, we'd done so many attempts to try to accommodate basketball in all the ways, shapes, and forms that it was quickly evolving from in that 10-year period that idea had never gotten anywhere as far as I know. And I don't think you still do it, do they?
Oh, no, they do.
Yeah.
So it would have been probably in the early 2000s that we started playing boy-girl doubleheaders. In the first couple of years, the freshmen and the JVs played on Thursday nights.
That's what I suggested.
The varsity were Friday night, and I didn't really like that as a coach because that meant I had to be out Thursday night watching my JV team
Yeah.
play, and then coaching Friday night. So now what our schools do is all 6 teams, 2 freshmen, 2 JV, 2 varsity, all play the same night. And so the freshmen are playing at 4 o'clock, JV boys, varsity girls at 6, and then boys and girls switch after that. As a fan now, I love it. I can go to the gym and I can see 6 basketball games.
There's a gym
I can
space.
see all the kids. Right.
We have the gym space.
We have the gym space, yes. So
Oh, good.
Yes.
now there's plenty of gyms, so yes.
Yes.
And even the girls, I'm speaking from a girls coach, they love those too because they never got to watch the boys play.
Sure.
So those are opportunities, and I mean, usually you want to say, yeah, go watch the JV girls play because the JV girls are playing alongside at the same time as the varsity boys. We're like, this is you don't get these a lot of opportunities, which I think has changed. I feel like there are a lot more of these double headers or triple headers now than there used to be.
There are, so it's
Yeah.
all within the Appleton schools, maybe even I think Hortonville is doubleheaders with
Yep.
Appleton schools. Joe, any other?
Kimberly.
Kimberly
would,
as well?
Yeah, they would. There's just a couple that just we're not there yet. But
Sure.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Appleton doubleheaders they're the best.
Yeah.
They're the best because it's
I
the
wish I
community
could
aspect of it.
coach
You get to see all. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
and gyms are packed. Yeah, it's good stuff.
It is. How about, we'll start down here with this next question, that you talk about your best team. Now, some of you, your memories might be the team that went the furthest or won the most. Maybe it's not, the best team. Maybe your best team got beaten regionals or something, but you want to talk about just your best team.
I had a really smart team. I think it was 98 when we went to state. It goes in with the previous discussion too, because when I took over the program from Joe Lamers, who I was assistant for a couple of years, or I don't know how many years, we ran a swing offense, and I couldn't stand it. So running the offense beginning, and I think by Christmas we're maybe pretty close to 500. So I said I had enough of this. So over Christmas break, I had been to Dick Bennett's, his clinic, and then I went to watch Carol Hammerly's at UWDB. I watched her practices, and she was running Bennett's offense with her own tweaks. So I said, geez, that's interesting. I really like this. So I said, I'm going to do that. So I took this team, extremely bright, and said, we're doing a new offense, and this is how we're going to do it. And went over with assistant coaches, and they liked it too. So we changed our offense over Christmas. I put in a new defense over Christmas, and we went to state.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do that with every team, but boy, this team was brilliant. And then the best team I had was the next year, and that was a team we won conference with. And I was sure we were going to meet up with Kettle Moraine again in state. And my conference player of the year point guard blew her ankle out the last week of practice. And we ended up beating Menasha and Fond du Lac to take the conference. No, Menasha and Appleton North. And the Appleton North game was just this fantastic game, just right down to the wire. And it was before seeding. The next year was seeding. So we turned around and played Appleton North again on Tuesday. And we were we hopped off to an early lead. It came down close again. We were totally emotionally drained by the end of the thing, playing without Molly Knipe was her name. But those are the two best teams I've had. One was just the smartest best team, the other was just the physically best team.
All right. Mary Beth?
Yeah. Well, it's just like, I don't know how many kids you have, what, 3 or 4?
3.
Yes, so it's like picking out which is your favorite kid.
I can do that.
I was gonna say, so which is it?
I just choose not to tell you.
Is this taped?
We'll come back to you.
Well, I probably would have to say that team that went to state, that very first time, so it was sort of history making and everything. But I can take you back a little bit. So Pam, I can't remember exactly, were you there for that regional game that we played over at New London? This was the team that was going into state, and we were playing Appleton East. Pat Mady, and if you remember the name or not, she was really feisty, and we were just really, I mean, she's the one that, played AAU basketball. I mean, she was, so smart and everything. So we would tape games at that time. So I would tape all the games and everything, and then I would go up on a Sunday afternoon and I would dissect these games. So she made me a real good coach because I would think of all the things that she did. So anyway, the game is like in, I think again we might have been down by a point or so, but and it was like maybe 7 seconds left or so, and it was we got the ball at the end of the court. So I think, Pat was saying to her kids, like just go into the lane, and just put your hands up and do not foul. I think that was what she was saying to the kids. So I had this whole play set up and everything, and so Linda Utchik was on the team. I don't know if you remember her or not, but she had a really good arm. She was a tennis player and everything, softball player. So anyway, so I said, let's throw it almost the length of the court if we can do it, maybe into the center line or so. So we did that. And then Sue Davis was supposed to take the shot, okay? And so that never happened. So all of a sudden, Sue saw Julie Hammer dashing through the lane, and she threw her the ball. And Julie was a character, and she took this off, like, center shot and made it. It was like, holy crap, So we were all so surprised, but that was the team that was sort of like almost like they're destined, to do wonderful things and everything. So yeah, that was the impetus that put us into the state tournament. So that was my favorite team.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to think I'm weaseling out of this answer, but I think it's true. It really is the stuff I value. Is that it really is impossible to say like your favorite one or your best team or whatever, because I think, and the reason why I say that, my first year we were, won the conference, last year went state, the whole thing, but the teams in between did so many things to like build up the culture. So by the time, we were ready talent-wise, that culture was there, and so what I mean. It's just hard to say what your best team is, but yeah. I loved so many of them.
Yeah,
we'll let you go with that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, going along with that, I agree. I mean, I only coached for 5 years, so I had a number of the same girls for quite a few girls for quite a few years. maybe 3-4 years for some of them. And I think what was for me, when I look back, is on any of those given teams, we had. I could throw names out there, but like I honestly don't want to miss anybody. But I had a girl who just was our defensive stopper. Like she was on the other team's best player. Like there was no doubt about it. That was you had girls who were we had a post player, who we knew was going to be the presence in the middle, right? We had our point guard who was our go-to ball handler. Those types of things. And at the end of the day, like you didn't know who was necessary. Like someone might rise up and score 10, 12 points for us. I don't want to say unexpectedly, but they might not average that, but they would. And I think that was fun to watch, and I think was neat just that they had roles, but then they also would kind of just surprise us, surprise the other team with other jumping or stepping up in big games when it was needed. So I think I saw that through quite a few of those years.
I'm going to talk about the team that only won 4 games all season because that was my favorite team, and it was probably a combination of the coaching and the fact that that was one of those years where probably the tallest, strongest team was as powerful as my little finger. They did not give up, and it was just amazing. So we came up with an idea that maybe we got to do some kind of a gimmick, and so the gimmick that the assistant coach and I came up with is to rotate defenses, and every time the clock stopped, we held up these cards pulling out a different defense. And I guess that year was the year that Menasha went to state and did a great job. Had a wonderful team. We had them on the ropes for 3 quarters, but then we just ran out of gas. But they were the best. They took to it. They didn't give up, and it was fun changing those cards all the time and having the poor offense on the other side going, what are they doing to us now?
All right, we'll start with Steve. We'll come back this way. I'm not going to ask you who your favorite player is because Joe coached his daughter, so yes. How about who's the best player you coached against?
Ann Clapperidge from Fond du Lac.
Oh, okay.
She was unstoppable.
Coached against. Yeah. Okay.
Wow. I think about DePere. I don't know. I want to say specific. Names because I think about DePere. I was outstanding when I was coaching, but we always saw him in regionals. I was like, we got to get past DePere, But I also think about Fond du Lac. There was a year they had 3 girls, and even just like try to pick one of them and stop them because the other 2 are just gonna, So I think about those girls. There was words on that team. I mean, it's just, yeah, you know, those are tough teams. We were talking about that with, you know, with Emily and Lily. I mean, it's just like, how do you stop a team that has so many weapons? So I think those are the teams and players that stand out to me.
Easy for me. It's Teaspoon, Natisha Heidemann, who's in the WNBA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was. That was early in my career of coaching, and I wasn't ready for her. But I learned really fast that you know, about being a good enough coach for your girls. That was an eye-opening game for me. So they won on a game winner, but like I felt like I could have been better. But yeah, she was phenomenal even then. So yeah, went to market.
So exactly, you remember her then? I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah. And she's with Minnesota.
Yeah.
Lynx. Anyway, yeah, I've been watching her too. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
And came from Green Bay, and I think Green Bay finally like retired her jersey about a year or so ago. I mean, could have retired that jersey a long time ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, there were a lot of good players in the conference. Pam, can you think of some that, offhand? I would think Laura Koenen, I don't know if you remember her or not.
Yeah.
Kathy Hagerstrom, those are two from Nina. And when I was coaching at West, you know, if we had anybody that was 5'11", I'm going, yes.
Right.
You know, and they had like 3 kids that were 6 feet tall. I'm going like, really? But Laura Koenen actually ended up in the Olympics, not playing basketball, but another sport.
Handball,
Huh?
team handball.
Yes, you remember her?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, wasn't she awesome?
she was.
Yeah, and she played point guard.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so she was a handful. And then Kathy Hagerstrom played the center position, and she ended up, I think they both got maybe scholarships for whatever. But the interesting thing was that we had a player on our team, Teresa Weber. Remember her at all? So Teresa was, you would have loved her. She was just, you know, she'd hustle, she'd listen, she'd do whatever she could and everything. And she was just a good person. So I remember this, and this was sort of interesting. So I don't know if the coaches, you know, voted on, you know, most valuable or whatever. So this Kathy Hagerstrom definitely should have been most valuable. And Teresa ended up getting it. So, you know, and she was good. She was very good. But Kathy really was the, you know, player. But anyway, so Teresa good. Most valuable.
Anybody stand out for you, Coach Payton?
Yeah, in the conference, I agree with Clapridge. Yes. And another one, I can't remember her name, she was a post from Anasha.
Tracy
Edwards.
Tracy Edwards, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Who was an
yes.
assistant at Appleton East.
Okay.
Did she?
She was an assistant at Appleton East with me for 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
She was a big gal.
Actually,
Okay.
an amazing ability to coach. If she
Oh,
would have,
really?
if she would have wanted to pursue that, yeah,
Oh.
she was phenomenal.
I got a tie-in with Steve about defensing Clapridge because we saw her in the sectional finals. When Amanda Brown, right? We needed to stop her, so we designed a defense to stop Amanda Brown. And we call it the Brown defense, obviously. So when we played
original.
at Fond du Lac in the sectional finals down Oshkosh North, I said, we're playing the Brown defense. And it worked. We had played it before and it worked like a charm. Drove her right outside. 1-3-1, front and back. Whenever she got back inside, she was front and back.
Amanda Brown's daughter plays at Appleton North right now. Ava
Yeah.
Dorfel.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she'll be a junior this year. She didn't get
really
them on
good.
site.
No,
She's only about 5'9".
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, but a good player.
Yes.
How about that?
Oh, isn't that interesting?
How about, we'll go back this way, last question before we open it up to the audience here. What do you miss the most about coaching?
Practices. Yeah. Definitely, like I said before, I love teaching basketball. It got, after 20 years, it got pretty stressful. I knew before that rotten last year, I told my wife and the AD, I said, this is my last year, don't let me talk you out of it.
Yeah.
Okay? And it turned out to be kind of a nightmare, except for the girls I work with, of course. Practices and things we do, but definitely practice. That's what I miss. I miss teaching basketball.
Yeah.
I miss the kids, and the camaraderie and everything. And I always was so competitive and everything, and I wanted my kids to be really competitive too. And I could hardly wait to go into. I love practices, but it was like you would do it like on a play. You'd practice and practice and practice, and you'd put on this play. Well, that's what I thought we would do. We would go out there and show
Definitely the relationships, yes.
Yeah.
That's a whole
Yeah.
that's huge.
Well, that's exactly, and to see how they performed under pressure, and how they accepted, things and everything. But yeah, so it's really fun. I will just deviate a little bit. So we had the senior center grand opening a couple of weeks ago,
Awesome, by the way.
and there were kids that were celebrating their 50th class reunion, class of 1975. And a bunch of them came over to the center, and I'm going, oh my gosh, wasn't that neat? So I love the relationships, and and today we had another gathering over there, and former students pop up and say hi and everything. So that's what I cherish the most.
Yeah. Well, I miss it so much. I just kept coaching. So yeah.
No, I would agree. It's practices. Just working with the girls. I taught elementary when I was coaching, and to go from second graders to high schoolers was a huge adjustment, but a really good one. It was just it was a ton of fun.
In some ways, the same.
There is differences, right? Yeah.
The one thing that strikes me is the roar of the crowd at Emmanuel Gym. When everybody's sitting next to the floor and the place is packed to the rafters, there's nothing better than listening to that. And when we went to the other gym, it wasn't the same.
All right, we will open it up to the crowd here. What questions do you have? And we can just you can jump in and answer the question as you'd like.
Early on, one of you mentioned something about the games, the girls' games had no publicity.
That was me. That was way back, when we were playing 6-player, and it was low-keyed, and it wasn't WIA sanctioned, and they really didn't want us to, have anybody there or even know that we were playing.
Wow. Yeah. But there was no awareness of the girls' team.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
It came around.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, because early on too, when we did play other teams in like a conference and everything, the Post Crescent, with the, articles and everything. So people would always ask me where my articles are, for the game, because we'd always call them results and everything. And I said, if you look right next to the obituaries, there we are. this little itty bitty, 2 inch by 2 inch or something like that. Eventually, things changed,
They did change.
But
we used to go in individual coaches' cars to get to the games too. We didn't have buses.
Oh no, yeah. How illegal was that?
Yeah, you don't do that.
So it was.
I was gonna say, well, that came back around.
Yeah.
Last week, I listened to the coaches talk about, the boys coaches talk about the importance of that connection between the school culture and the support of the schools for the boys' teams. And that was important to boost the morale of the teams. And I'm wondering, early on, obviously, I'm assuming those girls realized they were the pioneers, the ones that were playing on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Right.
They had to have accepted that they were the pioneers of the team. But how was the turnout? And were the boys supportive?
The boys were there and cheering, and
good.
and it wasn't because they were boyfriend-girlfriend kind of things either. They just basketball for the boys, of course. Wanted to see basketball for the girls.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there was some support, with the school kids and everything coming in. Parents, I think there were a lot of parents that would come to our games. They were supportive of their kids.
Yeah.
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 One of the questions that came up last week, or not a question as much as an observation from one of the former coaches, is that the gyms aren't packed any longer with fans. They're not for boys' games, not for girls' games. Friday night basketball games are not the place to be necessarily in town anymore, and just kind of lamenting the fact that times have changed. And so,
But I think part of that is because of open enrollment. I mean, if a person's good at West, some other school is going to poach them. It just seems to be my impression.
Yeah, we came up with a lot of reasons last week.
Did you? Is that one of them?
I think one of them is just how much kids can do socially online. Meaning, you know, when I was in high school, if you wanted to see anybody, you had to go out of your house to find them, right?
Yes.
So you went to high school events because that's where all the kids were. That's where you hung out. That's not the case anymore. Kids are on their phone with their friends, you know, whether it's whatever social media. So we thought that might be one of the issues, but we came up with many other ones as well. But certainly saw a change, and that's a big reason why the doubleheaders are so fun, because the gyms are packed yet because of all the parents and all of, you know, family members and fans. But certainly high school students don't attend as much as they used to.
And I think it's jobs related too.
But they had jobs then too, Mary Beth. I don't, you know, I don't know if I can buy that one. I mean, in fact, I think fewer kids work nowadays than back when you and I were coaching.
I mean, I even go one step further. I mean, as a parent of, we don't have a Hillby High School this year, we would hop on YouTube and watch a lot of games online at home. I mean, just because it was like, oh, it's Friday night, like, we're exhausted, let's just turn the TV on and watch this game. You know, I mean, it's very convenient that way too. I mean, I'll admit that I think these next few years, I think we'll be more present in person. You know, I mean, regardless of whether or not he plays, I mean, we'll be there in person, I think, just because you want to kind of connect with the families, the school and whatnot more. But I think even as adults, I don't find us as content on our couch.
Sure.
I'll just, you know, so.
Yeah, that experience is really relatively new, and being able to just watch. I mean, you can watch so many games throughout the state.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So we usually have, if we're home watching, it's 2 or 3.
About what year did the attendance start to drop off?
I think it's been gradual. I would say it's certainly.
I mean, even with my 4 victory team, we had pretty good attendance all along.
Yes. I agree. I think that, you know, I go to basketball games. I'll probably get to 40 high school games a year. I don't see old timers in the gym like I used to.
That's missing.
But I also will, like Coach Huck said, I, you know, would like to go see this kid who played for Ashwaubenon last year, but I'm not going to fight crowds. I just watch it on TV. I watch it on a Saturday afternoon. I might go through a couple of games from Friday night on Saturday afternoon on TV. So I think that does probably play a role in it as well. Other questions?
When I worked at Presto in 1970, we started a girls' baseball team, a softball team. And I used to joke that they'd win 22 to 18, and 18 of the runs they scored it, but the 22 were on errors. Sure. It was horrible. It was horrible. But boy, in a couple of years, Presto won, you know, a couple of titles. And I mean, those women were good. And they were just starting from ground zero. You know, the men had 100 years head start. But you know, basketball caught up too. You know, I think you know, obviously the women's professional league probably will never match the men's as far as strength and stuff. But they're very talented people. You know, and it's catching on. So.
And I would say in youth basketball now, both boys and girls start together in probably 3rd grade. So, you know, I think so many girls could come into 9th grade, and they have for several years, ready to contribute on varsity, which I don't, if you think back to when you first started coaching, you probably didn't have freshmen contributing on a varsity basketball team, and that happens a lot now.
It was a 3-year high school, so.
Well,
I pulled a young lady out of Roosevelt.
Did you?
Yes, I think I was the first one to move a freshman up.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And she was the best. She was the best player I've ever coached. And I had her 1 year because her dad got transferred to Louisiana. Katie Schreider, ring a bell?
Yeah.
No? Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Other questions? Tanner?
Yeah. What year did you coach at Appleton West?
Me?
Oh, both of you, I guess.
Go ahead.
Just I'm trying to think. 75 to 78. No, excuse me, 85 to 80. No, let me see.
89 to 91.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you answer?
Mine, 05 to 2010.
Okay, so then we were talking about the attendance. So you're saying like Emmanuel was like packed. Do you think that had an effect before Appleton North was open?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
I don't know when East was open, but
East opened in '67.
so East and
The East-West rivalry
Yeah.
was huge.
okay.
I mean, those games, sometimes you couldn't get in the gym. Like literally,
Yes.
the more people could get in the gym.
Well, great, the East-West Regional that one year, the gym was packed. And it was just a great game with all
Yeah.
around.
I was going to comment on, earlier we talked about changes. And I don't know if, because it coached lower division basketball teams, but Brillion was what, Division 3 or Division 4. And the girls that we had out were basketball players. Then I came to East, and we had basketball players, but man, we had athletes. Holy cow, I remember first practice we had, the gym was full of athletes, you know, playing basketball, whereas, you know, I think I had, you know, 5, 6 pretty good athletes at Brillion. The rest of them basketball players, yeah. That was the biggest difference going from a little school to a big
Sure.
school at that point in the 80s, you know. Now it's changed now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first school in Illinois was a little school and we had 700 in it, so, yeah. But they were almost all the girls tried out for the team. It was amazing.
Tanner, other questions?
Yeah, you had mentioned, Greg, you had mentioned earlier that you had teams where you had a lot of injuries, ACL injuries, and was there a reason for that, or was that normal?
Well, that's
or-
a $64,000 question, yeah.
I
They're
didn't
still,
know
are
it was
still
a
talking
skill.
about that.
Could it be the
There's,
12 months?
Yeah, there's Ballistic. There's a book about that I'm reading about called Ballistic, and it's really interesting how they analyze bodies that have a history of injuries. For instance, wide receivers who are pulling their hamstrings, and they find out that the ones who are pulling the hamstrings have a different slant to their hip girdle. So they're going in and strengthening their body so their hip girdle isn't that slant. And they're also finding some things about landing of the feet and how the knee turns in or out that results in ACL or other knee injuries. So they go into prehab, I guess you'd call it, and strengthen the muscles to keep that from happening. So there's progress being made, but you know that's a question that's been going on for quite a while, yeah.
And the theory I heard was by making them play basketball 12 months a year to be specialists, they don't get a chance to play the other sports, which is also going to strengthen other kind of muscle
That's right.
groups so that they're all
Good
around
point, yes.
athletes like you found.
I mean, the ACL injuries, planting a foot, jogging. I had a point guard for 4 years who tore both her ACLs in those 4 years. The second one, she was doing warm-up dribbles before practice, and did a little spin and blew out her second ACL. Yeah. I happened to have an IP conference that night, so one of the practice I got late to, and they walked in and she was being carried out. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Unreal, just unreal.
You're talking about club ball before, and it's a 12-month commitment now. How do you all feel as coaches about the fact that kids don't have breathing time, or that is an expectation that you stick with volleyball or you stick with basketball? I just see that some of the numbers are getting lower and lower on the teams, and that.
I think it has to do with parents financially able to pay for their children to end up being. There's that book by what's his name, Malcolm Gladstone, about 10,000 hours. If you put 10,000 hours at it, then you'll become an expert. The reason Bill Gates was so good at programming is because as a kid they were doing 10,000 hours of programming computers, and they were hiring them as high school kids to do programming for IBM and whatnot. And I think the same thing, the ones who can afford to do it. I mean, a kid that's parents don't have that kind of funding or don't willingly want to put that as a priority, forcing you to follow all over the country and whatnot, don't want to put in that kind of time with, those kids don't even come out anymore. Why? because the ones that are going to the camps and playing 12 months of the year, whose parents are paying for them to go to campuses all over the country, they're the ones that are going to end up on the team, so why should I try? I think that's part of it.
Okay.
I don't know how you can get around that, but that's capitalism.
Yeah,
Kind
Tanner.
of piggybacking off your question, the WI just passed that it's unlimited contact days now. So how do you guys feel about that, is my question, because I know some schools, you know, if they will abuse the no contact, will make students want to only play one sport. But if we all come together and do what's best for the kids, is what we're trying to do at West. Like, I only had 7. Well, I know at Appleton North, I think they had like 15. And then they got football, and then they got baseball. Like, I know a kid who was in the mornings, football, and then basketball, and then baseball, all summer.
Yeah.
So that was passed this year, correct?
Yeah.
Unlimited practice now, or unlimited time.
Yeah.
And Coach Huck, you talked about the 5 days. So that came in to be maybe probably like 2002 was the first year. I think that's the summer that you could, for the first time, have 5 days coaching teams. Prior to that, there was none.
Right.
And part of the reason the WI went to it was there was a lot of cheating, there was a lot of abuse, where there was.
Yes.
So they said, let's level the playing field, let there be 5 days. But at that time, a lot of coaches said, why would I want to put in 5 more days in the summer? We don't get paid anymore. Now I think about, you still get paid about the same, $4,000 to $5,000 to be a varsity coach. And the amount of time that is being put in is, I think it's crazy. And it's not good for the coaches, and it's often not good for the kids, especially if they're out for multiple sports or they want to play multiple sports.
I think to your point, is like, as coaches, you really have to just be like sensitive to it, I guess. The flip side of that is, if like when I was in high school, if you told me I could have 20 contact days for basketball, amen, I love it. So that would be an opportunity for me to engage in that. But, you know, well, you know, Chad, or whatever, I'm just making up, Chad, maybe he doesn't want to do 20 because he's doing multiple sports. That's where the coaches, I think, just have to be understanding, like, okay,
Right.
he was here for 6. Yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? So I think, but giving the opportunity to the kids, it's opportunity. You know? Yeah. And I think we have athletes like that today. A lot of them want that, but yeah. But not everybody does. So.
Yeah, I think being understanding of that kids want to play multiple sports. I do think it makes it difficult. If you ask me, I do think it makes it difficult. Because I think kids feel like, well, there's this, I should be at that, because that's, and I think that can be hard, you know? And even as a parent, it's like, okay, so what are all the opportunities here? What do we have to do, you know? But I do think, you know, you just have to realize coaches are understanding too. It's summertime, like, there are other things bigger than, you know, a basketball workout or a whatever it is, open gym, whatever it is, so.
So Tiffany, when you were in school, we were 3 sport.
Yeah, for 3, yes. I did volleyball, basketball, softball for a couple of years, and then I quit volleyball, and then my senior year they started golf, so I did that for my 3rd sport.
And were you 3 sports?
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And were you
What?
3 sport person?
Oh, 4.
Yeah. I was going to say, you know, and I always remember Matt Erickson. Okay, remember Matt? You know, he's the manager now for whatever Brewers, but anyway, he was.
Whatever Brewers. No. Small potatoes, this guy.
But he was an all-American young man, and he was 3 sports. So when he graduated, he had like 9 letters or whatever.
Right.
But he was multi-talented. But I always remember that he was one of the neatest guys and participated at a high level on all 3 sports. And look where he is today. So I'm really a proponent to make sure that, you know, kids, you know, compete, you know, in numbers of sports. But nowadays it's a specialization, and just like you said, you've got all the clubs and everything, you know, and then some kids are left behind because, you know, some of the parents can't afford, you know, the travel and the monies and motels and, you know, entry fees and all of that. But
I think that's the beauty of basketball yet. You can still be a great basketball player without playing a lot of club.
Yeah.
Where it's overtaken girls volleyball, you have to play club or you won't compete at the high school level. girls softball has become a suburban sport. You can't compete if you don't play club. Basketball, you still can go into the YMCA and play 2-on-2 or 1-on-1 or shoot if you want. The other sports are really struggling with girls' participation. Basketball's hanging in there a little bit at least.
When I was at Brilliant, we had a D1 prospect, and the scout came in from Southern Illinois. And I remember standing with her on the sideline, and she's watching the girl she was after, but she's watching the rest of the girls, and she's commenting on that, oh, there's a good athlete, and then got in a discussion with her about this exact thing.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, we want all our prospects to play 3 sports.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
You're that old.
I would be curious to look at a team, like I think about your daughter's team right now, how many of those kids that she's playing with right now played more than one sport in high school? And take the number of college basketball teams, then look back 15, 20, 30 years and say how many of them were playing multiple sports and see if that's changed too. I'd be curious if it's fewer now than it was.
Yeah. I think it should. We talked about open enrollment a little bit. Do you feel that has hurt where teams have coached, like Kakana, Kimberly, Nina, whoever? Do they actually try to draw Appleton and vice versa?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it still is a strong draw. Huh? That's okay.
So I think it's really hurt Appleton West,
Yes.
you know, with overall, all the sports over there too, so. And then Beanie, didn't you say that there was a 6'10" boy that
Yes.
was supposed to be going to Appleton West and now he's going?
He went to Appleton West his freshman year, and then he went to Nina for 3 years.
But
Yeah.
you're talking about a few years ago?
Yeah, a few years ago.
Well, that was, well, it
Yeah.
wasn't recent.
So, yeah, a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I don't know about girls' sports as much. I know North has benefited from open enrollment in girls' basketball, boys' football, but I don't know about other schools. I don't know, Joe, any East girls? Did you have any open enrolled girls into your
Well, Lily
program?
Hansford was open enroll.
Okay.
I think there was a coach, won't out the person, but it said if you don't have a transfer right now, you're not going to state.
Oh, boy.
You know what I mean? That's. I don't think he was saying advocating for it. There was just an observation. And when you look at even like on the boys' side, like when those guys and there's those teams at state have a transfer.
And maybe I'm old-fashioned, but it's like you grew up with these kids and they develop to become an athlete playing in a certain sport, then you're going to come and see this kid that you grew up with. But if it's open enrollment, he's gone, she's gone.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Maybe because there are a ton of players that don't do that too. You know, there's people in the area.
I'm thinking of the superstars that everybody wants to, hang their hat on because I grew up, like if Brian, I remember Gene Woodley, maybe John Wildermuth told me that Gene Woodley started making sure that Brian Butch came to West like when he was in 3rd grade or something ridiculously young. To make sure that didn't happen, that he got poached and went somewhere else, way back.
You might get the story mixed up. I gave Brian Butch an Appleton, West Jersey when he was in 5th grade.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, it's not
I went over. Somebody said there's a kid at Houdini Elementary School who's 6'4" or something, so I had to go see yes, he was. And
How'd you find out about it?
just word of mouth. Somebody worked at Houdini and said, there's this tall kid walking around, so I checked him out and he did. Yeah.
The other part of that with this is kind of what he referred to earlier is that if your aspiration, if you are one of those top players, like playing in the FBA where you're going with athletes constantly every day, that's a different experience than maybe some of the other schools that they would play in.
Yeah.
So that's what they want to play in. You know what I mean?
To draw into the FEA conference schools, and so, right, yeah.
I think that kind of answers the question, and this might sound real naive, but from the player's perspective, this open enrollment, what is the draw for them to go to a different school? Is it that they will be the superstar on the team? Is it that they recognize that team is the team that has the possibility of going to state, so they're, you know, going along with that? What are they looking for by moving to a
I thought a
different
scholarship.
school?
They thought they'd get a scholarship if they played for this school instead of the school that they were supposed to play for. I'm not sure.
Sure.
I have a funny story about that. I was a psychologist, probably still am. But working with social workers and stuff, one of the things we did when we were working with kids is look at their education background. And often the kids who had a lot of trouble were in multiple schools, multiple woes. And so with open enrollment, I look back at my daughter, and she was in 5 schools in 6 years because she wanted to get into East feeder. So she was at Roosevelt. She was at she was one more. She was at 2 elementary schools, then Roosevelt to Madison to East.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
They're also
She was way ahead of her time.
that kids get to know other kids because they're much more mobile, because of social media, because they play a lot of, if they play AAU in the 5th grade. Growing up, we just knew the kids like in our neighborhood and then maybe across town, and then when I took the bus to Valley Transit bus to play basketball at the YMCA, I got to meet some Appleton kids. Other than that, now it's not like that. Even like my kids, their best friends are kids they met playing club this or club that. And so a lot of times friendship drives it as much as maybe anything else. But certainly if you get a group of kids together that are doing very well, they may choose to go to the same high school, which happens occasionally.
Yeah, and facilities matters to some of the, some of those kids are going to the places that have different facilities.
Yeah.
Maybe a coach.
Coach, yeah.
I just want to say one thing on behalf of Appleton. I'd like to thank all you people for the ungodly amount of hours you put in coaching and teaching kids and the sacrifices you made. I know you must love kids to do it, and I think it's really neat, and it's neat that you're here tonight to share it. So Appleton's lucky to have all of you.
Yes, thank you.
Just a little personal thing. We've come a long way, but in some ways I wonder, have we? Yeah. In the early mid-70s, Pam and I coached JV basketball for 3 years on the very best, and a number of those women, they're not girls, they're 60 years old or whatever, still have contact with. And the practices were wonderful, and maybe they had other sports, but the relationships that they had with each other and that we had with them, are still very important to me. And I think it's, there's all the stuff with AAU and all these other things, but I still think there's something with high school basketball that hope isn't lost forever.
Yeah.
I think we're winding down here. We invite you to visit the exhibits, particularly the sports, the basketball rooms, if you haven't already done so. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.